Hello, and welcome to this short session on persuasion. I make no apologies. This is a quick summary, and I'm not a quick summary kind of a guy, but I've come to the conclusion I have to shorten and sweeten things. So this is about a half-day session. If you do the full detailed breakdown and explanations, and we're going to do it in about 30 minutes. So you're going to get the top line keynote elements. Please feel free to follow up with me if you have further questions or you think this is intriguing enough to deploy at your team. You'll see down there in the bottom left, this is made in collaboration with my good friends at QC Solver. They have a software product which solves problems for purchasing and procurement professionals, whether in the public or the private sector, and is one of the few software products that I know that will require less work from people inside your organization. So please do check them out if you have a few moments. What is persuasion? So persuasion is the art of getting someone to adjust their behavior or attitudes based on your input, whether that's verbal, physical, written, all the different communications strategies. So we're going to look at what the science says about the key levers to think about when seeking to persuade someone. So I built this 8 elements of persuasion model. It comes from things that I have found useful over the years as a professional negotiator, and also clearly my academic reading and research. There is a number of references that went into it. Having said that, one of them was a TED talk by a gentleman called David Brooks, called The Social Animal. David has done a number of really interesting and insightful TED Talks, but I would check that one out because a lot of the thinking behind this came from there, and it's insightful, and it comes at it from a different perspective than I come at it from here. So it's sort of additive to what you're going to see and what you're going to see here. So I believe there are 8 elements, and they nice and elegantly break down into C, N, R, J, T, S, W, A. And what do they stand for? Well, the first element is around building an appropriate foundation for your persuasion. And we'll talk a little bit about the first one because people seem to have forgotten how to do this. I think we used to do it back in the day. The first of them is connect. People like to do things for people who are like them. And there is all sorts of research and experiments that have been done, even simple things like dropping an unposted letter on the pavement, which requires a stamp being put on it. So if you're going to post it, you have to pop the stamp on, and then assessing the language skills of the person that picked it up, and then assessing randomly picked it up, and then assessing whether they went to post it or not, and then how closely aligned the language of the letter was with the individual. Some really interesting blind studies. We are more persuaded to work with people who we have something in common with. They even did some very simple experiments where they get university students on opposite sides of the continent to negotiate deals, and if they just negotiate a deal with them, here's the case study, they get to a certain level. If they have a pre-activity which says, before you do the deal, find one thing you have in common, there is between a 30 to 40% uplift in the value created just in finding one thing in common, even if it's something as simple as we like the same brand of chips. So building connection is an important element of persuasion, and what you often find is people are in too much of a hurry and they hop straight over that important connection piece to get to business. When I was a young man, I used to be quite proud of saying, don't discuss your personal life with me till after we've done the deal, because the business is important and we need to move forward at pace. Now I'm a slightly wiser person. We take the time to figure out where people's heads are at before we do the deal. I apologize for my creaky voice. One of the reasons I'm making this video is I promised someone I would speak at their networking event tomorrow, and I now can't go because I'm not very well. So the prompt to make this video was at least so they had something they could use for their activity. But kind of given when I'm doing it, you're stuck with the creaky voice. I want to talk a little bit more about connection, because people sometimes say, well, you know, I don't know what to connect with people on. I have this little interesting acronym called PROFITS. It comes out of sales strategy, really, as much as anything. And PROFITS is a series of topics that it is safe and appropriate to connect with people on if you want to build a connection with them. Now, the first one is pets. I have a lot of pets. That's kind of why it's top of my list. Very neutral. If they have them, then you can build a relationship. Lucky for me, I have reptiles, fish, crustaceans, cat, dog. So I cover most of the bases when it comes to pets. Now the next one is resume, how they got to where they are. And I don't mean, you know, tell me your resume in detail, but I do mean, you know, talk to them a little bit about their life's journey to get to the role they're in. And this is kind of a business focused talk. So, you know, business focused, these kind of things. How did they get to where they are? And are there any similarities in the ways that you got to where you are? What's their current occupation? That's a nice clear one. If there's something in common between the jobs that you do, that can build a connection. A family. Do they have family? Is it important to them? Do they not want family? What resonances do you have there? Although I'd say for some of these, if you ask the question in a nice neutral manner, you can then determine how people feel about certain things. When I was a professional salesperson, I actually used to have on people's files, do not mention family with this person because it's a red flag for them. Interests, what are the things they're interested in? Maybe backcountry camping and going out into the wilderness, I guess, as well as my animals and other hobbies that I have. But do you have anything in common in the interests that you have? The type of person they are they quiet, more subdued, reserved, introverted person, or are they a louder, more exuberant kind of individual? And then you can bond over having a connection over being a similar type of person. And then I guess the final one is could be bundled under interests, although I wanted to put an S at the end. And I think sport is up here last, because sport is a really good, very neutral way of connecting with people. People either really like sport or they really don't like sport, and you can bond with them over either perspective. And sport is one of the areas where they can like a team, or let's go the other way, they can actively dislike the team that you support, and you still bond over them abusing you for how stupid you are for supporting the team that you're in. As long as you remember the aim of the game is I'm looking to build connection with this person, not to manipulate them, but just to make sure it's easier for them to see me as an equal human being and interact with me appropriately. So profits, pets, resume, occupation, family, interests, type, and sport. You'll notice politics, sex, and religion are not there, because those are things to broadly avoid unless you know someone very well or you're outside of a business environment. The next of the 8 elements is needs. What do they need and what do you need? And spend some time if you're going to try and persuade people to understand what it is they want from both the interaction you have and life in general. I can't remember who the American politician was who said a very long time ago, it's very hard to persuade someone to stop doing something if doing that thing is what keeps them in a job. So, sometimes people are trying to persuade people to do things which are the polar opposite of meeting their needs. Many years ago, I was trying to persuade a small team, or quite a big team actually, to join part of a program I was representing. And I remember saying to the first member of the team who agreed to work with me, "What do you need?" And they said, "I need visibility." And then sort of chuckled and said, "Well, I'm not sure you can really help me with that." And I said, "Well, what do you mean visibility? Let's just understand that for a moment." And she said, "Well, I don't think you can help me." And I said, "Well, what does visibility mean? Please humor me. What are you looking for?" And she said, "Well, there are hundreds of managers here and only 4 directors, and I'd really like to be a director, and I'd just like to become more visible within the organization." And then we did the activity that we needed to get done, and I'm trying to keep this under half an hour, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on what it was I did. But once we'd finished and got it to a success, I sent an email to the CEO of the organization and said, "You might like to take this lady to lunch, because she's just done an amazing deal, and you should pick her brains about the work that she's doing, because she's very smart and very driven." And about 35 minutes later, she was stood up at my desk saying, "Oh my God, what have you done? I've got lunch booked with the CEO next week." And I said, "Well, now we need to figure out how we engineer that to drive maximum value. And I need to share with you the things that happened in the negotiation and why they happened the way they happened." Of course, the next day, almost everyone in her department was lined up at my desk or ringing me and saying, "Can I work with you on a project?" And that was kind of an interesting one, because I can't get you all lunch with the CEO. But find out what people need, and then see how, as much as we can in life, we get for the people who are around us the things that they need to be successful. And then I believe good things will happen. Now we start to get to the more mechanical things. So the next phase is called the move towards phase. So this is where I encourage the other person to come towards me. And the first thing we're going to deploy of those two is rationale. What are the reasons why you should do what it is I want you to do? Interestingly, at the end of this, we're going to give you the opportunity to take a little profile. When people take the profile without doing the explanation from me first, rationale is typically their highest score. We are hardwired, we're not actually, we're hardwired to connect with people and help people out. That's the way we were born, that's the way we came into this world. It is our schooling which teaches us everything has to be about logic and rationality, and they stamp all of that connection and need stuff out, and we'll become super logical. But if you take, without taking this class, your rationale, and if you're honest with yourself, your rational score is higher. I think if I can get somebody to do something that I need them to do, whether it's a supplier or whether it's a colleague, because we have a really good connection, or because we've really understood what we both need in this thing, or because they want to do me a favor, it costs me a lot less than having to sit down and think up a whole load of good reasons why I should be the guy or not be the guy, and argue with their reasons why they should or should not be the person. The other thing to think about rationale is, if I have my rationale and you have your rationale, now we're just having an argument. I quite like taking the trash out, to be honest. But just assume for a moment I don't. My wife could have all sorts of reasons why I should take the trash out. I could have all sorts of reasons why it's not my turn. And we can have that debate as long as we want. Quick funny story, I don't know if this will make you all laugh. But when I was a young warehousing manager, one of my supervisors came to me and said, "Boss, you're a really smart guy. Can you stop my wife nagging me?" So I said, "Possibly. What's she nagging you about?" He said, "Well, taking the trash out is one of them." So I said, "Okay." And he said, "She wants me to do it. I don't want to do it." So I said, "Okay, so my cure for that is this. You look her straight in the eyes. You make sure she's paying full attention. And you either say, 'Yes, honey, I'll take the trash out right now,' or you say, 'No, honey, I'm never taking the trash out as long as I live. You better find another solution.'" Punchline of this whole story is his neighbour started taking the trash out. Would actually come round in the evening and take the trash out. And then 6 months later, his wife left him for the neighbour. So, which I think was a win-win-win, because I don't think it's a very happy marriage either. But yeah, rationale. The next one after rationale is jeopardy. Jeopardy can be really powerful. Some models put the word threat in. I don't like threatening people. I like talking about things that could go wrong if we don't do. Like, here are the jeopardies that are going to happen if we don't get this thing sorted out. And I kind of like it if they're mutual jeopardies. I put it after rationale as much as anything because once jeopardy comes into play, people start to slow down and kick the tires, and it makes it harder to persuade them. Because the minute people start thinking about things going wrong, their brains tend to spiral a little bit. Now, these are the ones that don't cost anything. All right? If I can get you to do what I need you to do just because of a connection, free. If I can do it because our needs align and we can figure out why it's in both of our interests, broadly free. If I can do it because my reasons for you doing it are really good, broadly free. If I can do it because you understand there's going to be some real challenges if you don't do it, broadly free. Now we start to start giving stuff away. So the next one is trade. So trade is, if I do this, will you do that? So by definition, they're now two different things. You know, if I make this video, will you excuse me from coming to your networking event? Not that that was a trade we actually did. I'm not sure. Jerry even knows I'm making the video. But, and frankly, if you're watching this and you're not at the networking event, don't worry about it. So trade is trading one thing for a different thing. So, you know, looking at your colleague and saying, you know, would you cover for me this evening, and then I will do something for you tomorrow. Now, ideally, those two things are reasonably in balance, or you know, you're happy with the trade, but by definition, you're giving something away. Split the difference is now we're down to one thing. And, you know, let's just assume for a moment your boss wants you to stay an extra 2 hours at work to get something done, and you want to go home, and you agree, okay, I can do an extra hour or half hour or whatever it is. They're not happy because you didn't do the full 2 hours. You're not happy because you didn't want to do the half hour in the first place. People that like split the difference are the kind of people that say it's all the good deals when everyone walks away unhappy. And there are quite a lot of those around. Sad way to live your life. Just saying. Sad way to live your life. But split the difference is the giveaway. And then finally, there is the grab or go phrase. Sometimes when you're trying to persuade someone, you might say, I just can't work with you, and I want nothing further to do with this conversation, and leave the conversation. That sometimes prompts them to circle back and say, actually, I'm sorry, we got off on the wrong back, and you end up better off than you were beforehand. I used to work for a really wonderful business guy, and he said some of the best deals I ever did were the ones I walked away from. because the client came back 6 months later, even more desperate, and was too embarrassed to ask for a discount. So sometimes, if it's not going the way you want it to go, you are better off walking away and allowing the other person to fully reset. And then the final one is accept whatever it is the other person is saying. So you say to someone, you know, I'd like to persuade you to do ABC. They say no. You accept that at face value and let them move forward. It's not really a persuasion strategy. It is actually a reality of life. And I do think you'll see when you do the little activity that that you have to rank things. And at the end of the day, you do have to always accept something if you're looking to persuade somebody, unless you're Donald Trump, I guess. Although I do think he caves in more often than he would like to pretend. But you know, anybody who is remotely self-reflective knows that sometimes you just have to accept the status quo. I'm going to share something that's completely off topic here, just because I heard it last night and it really made me A, laugh, and B, go, that's interesting. So I was watching The Voice last night, and Kelsey Ballerini's on there. I think she's just an awesome human being. And she said, what does it take to be great? And she was just talking to one of the singers, and she said, there are 4 pillars of being great. She said, you have to have a certain amount of innate skill. You have to have incredibly high work ethic. You have to be kind to everyone around you, and you have to be audacious. John Legend looked at her, and he said, "Did you just make that up? That was really, that's really quite profound. It sort of made me stop." And she looked at him and she said, "No, it's the way I live my life." And I was like, innate skill, high work ethic, kind to everyone around you, and audacious. I think it's just such a cool way to live your life. Right, we're nearly at the end of this short video. Looks like I am going to get it done in under 30 minutes, which is really rather extraordinary. Most unlike me, I guess that's the joy of having a respiratory virus. So up on the screen is a QR code. If you scan the QR code on your phone, I'll just warn you, you're going to be dragging things up and down, so sequencing them. It's a little glitchy on the phone, or certainly my iPhone anyway. You move something and then you move your finger over the top and it grabs it and moves it again. So that can be a little irritating, although 1,000 times faster than answering the 50 questions if I do it in a more static way. I've actually got 5 questions in there, and it is well over 100 data points by the time you do all the math. So it's a very efficient way of collecting your thoughts. I actually have to process the report. I don't have a running server, virtual server to process them online, so I do actually have to open the Excel spreadsheet up and hit process. So you won't get it 30 seconds after you do it. I will get an email which says you've input your data. When I see the email, I'll go in and run some. So not quite real time, but you should get it within quite a short period of time. So thank you so much for listening to me. I don't think it took on the previous slide. It seemed to stop before I had finished speaking, which is very rude. So if you already heard this, I apologize. It didn't seem that it was there when I reviewed what was on the previous slide. All these ideas are just my opinion. So if you don't like the report that you get, don't worry about it. I won't be offended. I want you all to have the best life that you can have, as I intend to have the best life that I can have. So I hope if you did the report, it's been useful. I hope this little video has been useful. If you'd like to connect with me, I can be quite interesting in, well, many fronts, I guess, here in Canada, but particularly if you're in the supply chain realm at all, because I'm connected over 4,000 people. I've been in and out of supply chain and the technology realm in Canada for a very long time. And so I can get you connected to some really very interesting people. And occasionally I post some stuff. So my LinkedIn is Simon R.J. Brown. If you have any questions, feel free to email me at simonrjbrown@outlook.com. If you think perhaps I could help one of your teams or work in your organization, be super delighted to do that too. Well, thank you for taking the time. I said under half an hour, and it's 25 minutes, so we are exactly where I wanted to be.